very prolific offense, as you know, top 20 in many of the categories. I think the stat that's most unique specific to Wofford is entering today's game, 51% of their shots had come from three, which obviously that's a very high number. And then 52% of their points had come from three, which is obviously the combination of the two is very stressful defensively. And then, as you know, cover two, we want to force you to shoot as many threes as possible. 34 out of their 45. I don't know what that percentage is, but our contested three percentage, we want to be 70%. And through 5 games, our whiteboard stat category of contested three, we had not won any of them. And today the number was 65%. So we didn't win, but it was the highest percentage of contested threes we've had. So we did a lot better job after the first 5 minutes in which they scored 15 points of not getting in rotation. Anybody that gets in rotation, particularly against a team built the way they are, you're probably not gonna contest threes at the rate that you should. But I thought over the last 35 minutes, we were much better at not getting into rotation, and so you're able to contest the threes better.
And a kind of a follow-up with that, is that the effort in the last 35 minutes you need to see defensively as SEC play starts?
In my opinion, not to take away from the impact of coaching, but for us, the response over the last 35 minutes is what we have been lacking through the first 5 games and the first 5 minutes of the 6th game. If we're going to have a chance, we're going to have to compete with that level of spirit, with that level of energy, all of the coach speak words. But I thought the connectiveness of the 5 guys that were on the floor in those last 35 minutes, including the bench, I thought it was evident for the first time, which is the only way that we have a chance going forward.
Thank you, Coach.
Let's go to Travis Brown from the Bryan College Station Eagle, and then Chip.
Hey, Coach. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas. Happy Thanksgiving, Travis.
Thanks. Hey, was this one of those games where you kind of felt like maybe noon game, not a lot of crowds, you kind of had to pry that energy out of the team?
I tell you what I think. I think it was the largest, biggest test that we've had in non-conference play since we've been here, specific to what we were most deficient in. I think the things that Wofford is superlative at up until this point, the things that if you were to grade us would have been a D or an F, I think that's what presented the largest issue to us. And I think that our prep was better going into this game because it was the test specifically on what we knew we struggled with the most. And so I think it would have been the week after Richmond won at Kentucky. Wofford lost at Richmond by 5. It was a 1-possession game the entire game. And then they lost in the game that Kentucky was supposed to play in Atlanta, the kind of super showcase they put together. They lost to South Florida at the buzzer by 2. Their team puts an enormous amount of stress on you, very well coached. Their team is very efficient in what they're trying to do. And I think that the test that we faced was what we needed the most. Because for the most part, Tarleton, TCU, we never responded. The things where we've been struggling, today it was all encapsulated in this game. And so other than the first 5 minutes, I thought the last 35 minutes, it was for sure what we have to have going forward in order to at least get to a different type of test than the one we've been taking the last 6 games.
And then what's your comfort level you're feeling heading into this Christmas break compared to where y'all were heading into Christmas break last year?
Good question, man. I was when I was having my quiet time this morning, I noticed in my prayer journal that we played Oregon State a year ago today. Is that right?
pretty close, if not, yeah.
It was either today or tomorrow. And I think there's some of that same, oh, it came to life a little bit in the game. And I think for year number 2 progress, Travis, I know it was a little different. Obviously, Save didn't play, H didn't play. So there was one returner and one new guy that hadn't experienced the final exam and as far as the last game of the first semester. But I thought what was required of us, it became evident, and our guys knew they had to do it in order to pass the quote figurative test. So I think to have 3 days off, 3.5 days off, knowing this is what's required, can we come back and start from this point? Or are we going to have to retake the same test? That's going to be the next step that we have to take. But I would say maybe emotionally a similar feeling with today's victory and Oregon State a year ago at this time.
And then finally, you mentioned it there. What's Save's status?
Yeah, he's in the concussion protocol. I'm not sure if I'm supposed to say that. I try to always be a little protective of that. But I know it's all kind of, I don't know the appropriate etiquette relative to the virus, but it has nothing to do with COVID.
Thanks, Coach. Have a great holiday.
You too, man. Thank you.
Okay, let's go to Chip Howard from Sports Talk and then Andrew.
Buzz, how important was it to give these players a break? And were there discussions, meetings as to whether you wanted to safely or could safely do that?
Yeah, Chip. Similar to what we talked about a Zoom 2 times ago with your question, and I have to spend a lot of time alone because I'm strange, but I also have to spend a lot of time alone because of all the things that are going on in our country, specific to our sport, et cetera, because I want to, as I've told you before, I want history to judge the intent of my heart, at least that I was trying to do what I thought to be right. I'm not saying that I'm right, and I don't want to judge how other programs do it or all of that. I want to stay away from that, and I want to know that in my soul that I have peace, that I'm doing right. And so I just did not have peace that our guys couldn't go home. And I understand the ramifications of allowing them to have a break. I completely understand, but I just I want to treat our guys as if they're part of my family, because they are part of my family. Our staff is a part of my family. And Chip, I just didn't have peace that, hey, let's just stay here and keep working. And the NCAA says you have to take 3 consecutive days off and everybody just sit in your apartment until the 73rd hour. We're just not going to do that. But I also understand the impact that could have a week from now relative to conference game number 1. But our guys are off until Christmas night, and then we'll begin the COVID protocol on our return as far as being quarantined and all of the measures that we have to do for our staff and for our players. And hopefully everything will be okay and we can get back to work on the 26th.
So where are you relative to getting ready for conference? Where do you think your team is? And, you know, you could probably wait another 2 months, but you have to play here in a few days. So are you prepared, you think, for that first conference game, or will you be?
Well, I think this, you know, every coach would say this to some degree relative to all of the things that have transpired. You know, when I was training this morning, I was talking with Coach Gepp, and I was saying today is so important for us because we're behind. We're behind relative to the number of practices. We're behind relative to the number of games. But for whatever reason, and that it's a negative for me as a leader, so I'm being transparent in what I'm saying. I just think that there's a process that we follow, and it takes time, and there's no way that magically you can skip time relative to the priorities in regards to what we think is important. And so do I think that we're ready for conference? No. Do I understand that our next game is conference? Yes. Am I encouraged by what transpired over the last 2.5 days? Absolutely. Is it the next right step? In normal years, no. We would hope to have more traction than we have, but at the same time, it's not as if this only applies to Texas A&M. This applies to everybody. I think there's going to be conference Power 5 games played on Christmas Day, and there's already been conference games played in several other Power 5 leagues, even as we speak now. So it's what the calendar says, and we're not going to make excuses, but I am encouraged by what took place over the last couple of days here.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
All right, let's go to Andrew Hattersley from Gig'em 247, and then Daryl.
Yeah, Coach, with the limited attendance and no real fans in the building, how much of that energy is going to have to come from yourself? And when you look at the bench, and I saw you trying to get the bench involved, how much has to come from within, and how difficult is that to do?
Well, it's obviously unique. I don't think any kids grew up thinking we were going to play in an arena such as Reed Arena and it would be with this sort of ambiance or this sort of environment. But similar to what I said to Chip, that's just where we're at. We can't change that. We're following the state rules. We're following the county rules. We're following our institution rules. But I think, and I know this sounds like a coach, and I try not to ever do that, I think it's also evidence for us to see if we can manufacture our own energy. Obviously, I love our environment at Reed. I love the attendance. I love the students specifically. But that's limited. And so now you have to manufacture your own. And for us, I was hollering at the bench or anybody within earshot, like we can't just put it all on those 5 kids that are on the floor while the other 20 of us that are getting paid and or getting a scholarship just look. We've got to help. And so I thought the environment of those not in the game was what we were asking of those in the game. And so that was a good thing today for sure.
And then
Better than it's been the previous 5 games.
And then just a week removed from the TCU game, where do you feel like you made strides in those as a team overall?
Yeah, probably that right there. I think our energy and our response after the 15 points in the first 5 minutes, I don't think – we'd never responded against TCU. I thought they were better coached. Head coach was distinctly better than I was. Their players were better. Everything was better. And we never changed. And we never even made an attempt at changing. So I don't think a week ago, it seems like an eternity ago, but I don't think that we had that level of response. And I thought today our response is what it has to be. And we need that response to be what starts, not we want to be, what would it be? We want to be proactive, not reactive. Today we reacted and our reaction was good and it's better than it has been. And now we need to get to the point where we're proactive.
Thanks, Coach.
Yes, sir.
All right, we're going to try to power through a few more questions. We got Daryl Bruffett and then Owen Buchanan.
Coach, can you talk about your second half defense and how they seem to frustrate Wofford? And I got a follow-up after that.
Well, the one thing, Daryl, that I was going to say to Andrew that I think has improved over the last week that was for sure evident in the second half, we didn't get in rotation. And it's fairly simple. You don't get into rotation when you can keep the ball in front of you. And if you can keep the ball in front of you, that means you don't have to help. And if you don't have to help, that means you can contest the shot much better, more effective. And when they shoot, you at least have some level of an advantage in that you have inside position. Obviously, long shots equal long rebounds, and 80+% of their shots were from 3 today. So just because you have inside position when they're shooting 25 footers doesn't mean that you're going to get it. But from a tactical standpoint, you should have the advantage. And so today we were much better at keeping the ball in front. And I think the reason we were better, Daryl, is we weren't reaching, we weren't gambling, we weren't taking ourselves out of the play. When you reach, when you gamble, and you take yourself out of the play, only one thing can happen, and that's if you steal it. But the percentage of times you steal it versus the percentage of times that the opponent plays 5-on-4, it's a bad bet when you do that. And so we're not taking bad bets. We're much better at not putting ourselves in those bets anymore, which is encouraging.
And then my follow-up is, it seemed like it was at least almost a 3-shirt ball game for you. I mean, you were out there pretty active.
Yeah, I'm sorry. You know, I can't allow myself to wear a polo or a pullover. I think my grandparents would be really disappointed in me. And then I think I would have a hard time looking at Chancellor Sharp saying, I appreciate all that you're doing for our program, and I'm wearing a $50 pullover. So I just can't allow myself to do it. But what ends up happening is, because of the mask and everything else that's going on, it just seems like I sweat at even a higher rate. So I'm not sure what the answer is, but I did have to go through too many shirts.
I applaud your reactiveness out there and staying after him. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, man.
All right, let's go to Owen Buchanan, and we'll finish with Travis.
Hi, Buzz. I'm sure you may have answered this to at least some degree already, but when you talk about that Wofford provided the tests in which y'all specifically what they were deficient in, I assume
Yes.
at least part of that is guarding the 3-point perimeter and all that. But what else? What other tests were you looking for that they provided?
Yeah, so you know, offensively, Olin, they're very unique. It would be like I know you cover football a lot too. You know, it's like playing Georgia Tech when Coach Johnson's running the triple option. It's like playing the coach at Navy triple option. It's like playing Hugh Freeze and they're throwing the ball all over the place. You know, it's not your normal, let's just line up and play. And so what it does is because it's such a unique style of play, the priority of your rules become paramount, and you have to follow whatever your defensive principles are, because whatever they're doing, it's to counter that. And so I told their coach, I'd never met him before. I have a lot of respect for him. The previous coach at Wofford obviously is the coach at Virginia Tech now. So I know all of the stuff and have great respect. They're coaches. They're ball coaches, and there's not a lot of ball coaches left in our industry, but he has a very bright future. And I think that their execution level in a very unique style of play is really, really good. I don't know if it's elite because I've never coached that way, but it puts a lot of stress on you because the style of play is so unique. And so, yes, it is their threes, but it's all of the action that leads to those threes and how you defend that. And like similar to what Daryl was asking me, why were we better in the second half, or Andrew, as far as a week ago, we were able to keep the ball in front. And so that allows you to not get so completely stressed out because the ball gets behind you. And that's, man, I told their coach, I prepared more. I haven't even watched our game against Southeastern. As soon as Southeastern was over, I started preparing for this game because I knew, you know, we're the only Power 5 team playing them because nobody wants to play them because they're so unique in how they play. And that's why they've been so successful over the last 20 years. It's a very hard guard.
Well, thank you very much, Coach.
Yes, sir.
All right, well,
You growing a Fu Manchu, Olin? Man.
It's actually a full beard. It's just I'm starting to look like Colonel Sanders. You know, it's so white. I guess it looks like a.
Good for
my
you.
wife likes it, so
yeah, good for you.
So she makes the decisions.
Well,
She hasn't looked at me.
You didn't have to say that. I don't know your wife, but I could have answered that. I knew.
I think she wants to.
I know who's making the decisions.
I think she wants to hide as much of my face as possible.
I feel like I've lost control of this Zoom. All right, we'll wrap it up with Travis
It's just-
Brown.
I don't know how many games we're gonna win, so it's fun, like when everybody's in a good mood.
Hey, it's Christmas time, right?
That's right.
Real quick too, just curious on the noon scheduling and if there was any particular reason behind that, or just what the story was behind that.
I think Travis, there was maybe a little bit of influence from TV, but the second thing is, it's probably about a 12 to 18 hour added impact on our return to campus specific to COVID. And I think the game was initially scheduled for 6. We asked Wofford if they could change to noon so that they could get home tonight. We asked the SEC network if we could change to noon so that they could still show the game. And then selfishly, we did it so that the kids on our program could get home tonight. Not every one of them, but nearly all of them will be able to get home tonight. So because of what's going to take place that jams us up relative to COVID on their return, we were trying to buy an extra night at home tonight. Instead of them traveling tomorrow, they could travel tonight. So I'm thankful that it worked out the way that it did.
I am too. I get to go back home to my parents a little bit earlier, so thanks.
Merry Christmas, man. Santa Claus is coming to see you.
Appreciate it. Thanks.
That's a wrap. Thanks, Coach.
See you guys.